What is going on? In this video, we're gonna go retro. We're gonna step back into time. I'm gonna play a beat that I would have made in the 90s and mix it the way that I would have in the 90s. And if you're a minimalist that doesn't have too much gear or prefers to use very little gear, hopefully this will help show what you can do with virtually no gear. But first, I'd like to invite you to like, share, and subscribe to our sampler channel. And with that, let's get to it. Alright, so we'll start off with the main piece, which is the Tascam 464 Portastudio 4-track recorder and mixer. Now this has been with me forever, and this is exactly what I used back in the college days in my dorm room. Of course I didn't have the SP1200, which is the second piece, but I did have the EPS 16 Plus. So what's essentially happening here is I'm using 4 sounds from the EMU SP1200. A kick, a snare, a hi-hat, and a sample. That's it. That's running individually into the mixer. So we're just going to mix the beat, and we'll start with the kick. And immediately my first go-to thing that I would do back then was immediately start EQing things and finding a sweet spot that I liked. So that's what you see me doing here. When I kind of got something that I liked, I'd move on. So on to the snare. Oh, and on the very last channel, I've run the metronome, just because it was always good to have a click handy that I can bring out and bring in whenever I wanted to hear it. And the SP1200 is really good for that because it has a separate metronome output. Back then, I always liked my snares super loud, super in front, which is funny because that's completely the opposite of my mixing style now. It just shows how preferences change and evolve over time. Alright, hi-hat. This was my typical go-to hi-hat, just running in eighth notes, just steady. And that just came from hours and hours of listening to Pete Rock. I just always liked the way he did his hi-hat programming. And that was an adapted style that I incorporated into my beats back then. On a side note, listen to how bouncy that kick is. It's just so 90s, it's ridiculous. Anyway, I'm having too much fun here. Back to the mix. And on to the main sample. And once I had the levels and EQ kinda in the right ballpark, I would start dealing with the spatial elements, aka panning. I always liked my snare off to the side and my hi-hat off to the other side, because I just thought that was the coolest thing on the planet back then. Alright, so the next thing to do was a poor man's compressor. A trick that you could even do today is through an aux end. I've tapped the audio to go out to an external tube preamp. And this is another minimalist item. It costs about $99. It's an ART tube pre. So we'll start first by sending the kick out to the preamp, and that preamp is returned back to a channel on the mixer. And what it will do is it will dirty things up and act as a sort of compression. So let's send the snare there. You hear what's going on? And if you really want to get adventurous, you can send the aux end on the actual return channel of the tube preamp and send it back to itself. And you'll get a feedback loop like you're hearing right now, but if you dial it just right, you'll get a nice distortion and you can mix that level into the mix. And this is something that you just play around for a while and see what you like. And when you like it, that's it. Back then, we didn't spend too much time on mixing. Like an hour would be a really long time, and that mostly would be dedicated to just experimenting and fooling around, but the levels would come pretty quickly, because remember, this was just the beat. But once finished here, I would bounce this down to 2 stereo tracks, and because this is a 4-track cassette recorder as well, it would free up 2 more tracks for a vocalist, overdub vocals, or even scratching or anything like that, all down to trusty cassette. A completely simple, minimalist approach. No fancy studio. A lot of the times I would mix with headphones, because if you're in a dormitory in an apartment, you really can't bang out the place with crazy audio. But it was really simple. Anyway, back to this tube compressor thing. Let's fool around with that some more. in live fader movements. Oh my goodness, who does that anymore? But that's how drops were done, on the fly, manual. And you would do them anticipating when there was a special vocal line that the MC would spit. Because a lot of the times I'd be doing this sort of thing like early in the morning, and then you get up and you go to class the next day, the next evening, maybe the MC would come over then, but it wouldn't be happening when you were mixing, hence the pre-planning of drops and stuff like that. But all these type of decisions were made ahead of time. And of course you gotta have the traditional fade out for the way the song would end, so you'd have to think of some type of cool thing. And in this instance, I always loved panning. I just was obsessed, and still am, with panning things. So here's my fade out. And that is it. You really don't need much, even today. I can make an album just like this today and still have as much fun as I did back then. So if you're interested in getting projects done but you're waiting for specific gear, trust me, start now, use what you have right now. Using what you have on hand will teach you so much, and you'll be well prepared for when you accumulate gear in the future. Anyway, thank you for watching. If you liked and learned something today, subscribe to us here on YouTube. I will catch you on the next one. In the meantime, take care of yourself. Peace.